I was in chemistry class when the intercom blared the announcement. Active threat. This is not a drill. Lockdown now. You know that chilling feeling when your world shatters? Mine crumbled in an instant, trapped in a dark classroom, hiding from a school shooter. Then my phone lit up with a text, and I stared at it in horror, because it wasn't from Josh asking if I was okay. It was from Josh. And suddenly, the monster outside our door wasn't just a faceless threat. It was my best friend. How do you even begin to process that? It all started so fast. 1 second, we were in chemistry, and the next, everyone froze. Then, pure instinct took over. We dove under desks as our teacher, Mr. Navarro, sprinted to lock the door and kill the lights. I ended up crammed next to, and her whole body shaking, muttering, oh God, over and over. Then came the pops. 3 of them, somewhere in the building. Unmistakable. And nails dug into my arm, drawing blood. My best friend, Josh, had gym this period. In that building. But I couldn't even let that thought form right then. We were 32 kids, trapped in total darkness. That's real, someone whispered, the terror raw in their voice. That's actually real. And was already texting her mom, her hands trembling, telling her she loved her. My stomach dropped. I needed to do that too. More pops. Definitely inside. Maybe the first floor. Our classroom was on the second. 1 exit. Nowhere to hide if someone got through our door. My sister says there's a shooter in the gym. The kid next to me breathed, showing his phone screen. She's hiding in the equipment closet. The gym. Josh. I frantically typed, are you okay? The message just sat there, undelivered. A few hours earlier, we'd had a stupid fight at lunch. I'd called him pathetic in front of everyone. What if those were the last words I ever said to him? The thought was a physical punch to the gut. 20 minutes crawled by. Then footsteps. Running past our door. Everyone held their breath. The handle rattled. Someone let out a tiny, choked sob. Then a voice cut through the silence. Police, stay locked down. The footsteps continued, fading. They'll get him, and whispered, hope flickering in her voice. They'll stop him. But the girl in front of us, her face pale, turned around. My boyfriend's in the office. He says the shooter knows the building. He's using service hallways and back stairs the cops don't know about. More shots. Closer now. Our floor. The walls were so thin. We heard everything. Doors being tried, glass shattering. A scream down the hall. It stopped. And the silence after was worse than the scream itself. Someone's dead, the girl by the window whispered, glued to her phone. Multiple people shot. Don't say that. I hissed, but my voice cracked. The shots kept getting closer. We had nowhere to run. My phone buzzed. Antonio in our group chat. Has anyone heard from Josh? 3 responses. No. Josh, please be okay. 45 minutes later, the sirens outside were constant, but the shooting hadn't stopped. It moved through the building like thunder, sometimes distant, sometimes so close we could hear shell casings hit the floor. The fire alarm blared, then cut off abruptly, like someone had ripped it from the wall. He's on the 3rd floor now. A whispered voice read from a phone. Science wing going room by room. Anne's eyes widened. That's directly above us. He's going to come back down. We heard movement above us, deliberate footsteps through the ceiling tiles. Bits of dust drifted down. The footsteps stopped. It was like he was mapping out the rooms below, planning his route. The girl with the boyfriend kept giving updates. They're saying he has a list. He's looking for specific people. Then, footsteps on the stairs. Heavy and fast, then slow and deliberate. Our hallway. Everyone went completely silent. The footsteps stopped right outside our door. The handle turned, testing it. A muffled cry. The handle turned again, harder, rattling. Then, the footsteps continued, moving away. We all exhaled at once, a collective, ragged breath. We're going to die in here, Anne whispered. But an hour passed. We were still alive, still in total darkness. My legs cramped, but moving felt more dangerous than the pain. Someone whispered, the shooter's wearing a black hoodie and jeans. That described half the school. He's in the main hallway, the girl with the boyfriend reported, moving toward the math wing. The math wing connected to ours. He was coming back. Turn off your phones, Mr. Navarro whispered, his voice barely audible. No light, no sound. Complete darkness. My heart hammered. I heard Anne's ragged breathing. Someone praying under their breath. Footsteps closer now. They stopped at the room next door. A door handle rattled, then breaking glass. We heard him step through. Glass crunching under his feet, desks overturning. like he was searching for someone specific, and grabbed my hand, squeezing so hard I thought my bones would break. The footsteps came closer, stopped right outside our door. The handle turned, locked, a pause, then 3 loud bangs as something hit the door. The frosted glass window cracked, a spiderweb of lines but didn't shatter. We could see a shadow through it, just standing there, waiting. He knew we were in here. He was taking his time. More bangs. Harder. The glass spiderwebbed further. One more hit and he'd be through. The shadow was the right height for a student, not an adult. And something about the posture seemed familiar, but I couldn't place it through the fractured glass. The shadow shifted, raised something toward the glass. This was it. We were going to die in this chemistry classroom. My phone, which I thought I'd turned off, lit up with a text. The sound seemed impossibly loud in the silence. Everyone hissed at me to shut it off, but I just stared down at the screen. From Josh. You shouldn't have said those things at lunch. My blood ran cold. I looked up at the shadow in the window, at the familiar height, the slumped shoulders, the black hoodie, the one I'd gotten Josh for his birthday. My brain tried to process it, but the words on the screen blurred. And, seeing the phone light on my face, leaned closer. "What's wrong?" she whispered. But I couldn't make my mouth form the words that my best friend since 3rd grade was the person standing outside our door with a gun. My fingers shook so badly I almost dropped the phone twice. Finally, I managed to type back to Josh, "This isn't him. Please, this isn't who he is." Even though the shadow outside the cracked glass proved that's exactly who he became. The 3 dots appeared immediately like he was waiting, then disappeared, then appeared again. I held my breath, waiting to see what he'd say. The shadow shifted. I heard his footsteps moving away, getting quieter as he headed toward the math wing. And I knew, from 6 years of eating lunch with him every day, that we had maybe 2 minutes before he circled back through the service hallway that connected all the buildings. I made a choice without thinking it through. I texted Antonio in our group chat, typing as fast as my shaking hands allowed. "It's Josh. Black hoodie. Moving toward math wing. Forward this to 911 immediately." Antonio replied within seconds. Whoa. Then another message, sending it. And I watched the little status under my message change from delivered to read. Mr. Navarro crawled across the floor, toward me, probably ready to confiscate my phone. But I turned the screen toward him. His face went completely white in the glow of the screen, all the color draining out like someone pulled a plug. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Keep Josh talking," he whispered. "Try to buy time for the police." The fact that my chemistry teacher just told me to negotiate with someone actively shooting people made me want to throw up. But I swallowed hard and typed another message, asking Josh where he was going, asking him to talk to me. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared for separate times over the next 30 seconds. Each time, my heart hammered because I didn't know if he was deciding what to say or deciding whether to come back and shoot through our door. Finally, a message came through. I read it 3 times before the words made sense. "Coach Henderson is first on his list, then Tyler, who laughed at lunch. Then maybe I'll decide about you depending on how I feel." The casual way he listed people, like he was telling me his schedule for the day, made him feel like a complete stranger. Someone wearing Josh's face, but not actually Josh at all. I remembered Tyler laughing the loudest when I called Josh pathetic. Remembered him making jokes about it all afternoon. I remembered Coach Henderson cutting Josh from JV basketball last month, making that comment about his soft hands in front of the whole team. The list made horrible sense in a way that made everything worse because I understood why he picked those names. But that didn't make it any less terrifying that my friend spent time writing down who he wanted to hurt and then brought a gun to school. More shots echoed from the direction Josh was heading. Someone in our classroom started crying loudly enough that Mr. Navarro had to crawl over and cover their mouth. I texted Josh again. "I'm sorry about lunch. I was being a jerk and Tyler was worse. I should have stood up for you instead of joining in." I told him, "Please don't hurt anyone else. Please just stop." Maybe if I gave him what he wanted, he'd put the gun down. The dots appeared again. I held my breath, my chest hurting, hoping it meant he wasn't shooting anyone right this second. His next message was longer. "Do you really think sorry fixes everything? Does one apology make up for 3 years of me getting cooler while he stayed the loser everyone made fun of?" I read it twice. A sick feeling spread through my stomach. This wasn't about lunch at all. This was about me making varsity soccer while he got cut from every team. About me dating Emma while he couldn't get anyone to go to homecoming. About me having a whole group of friends while he ate lunch alone more days than I ever noticed. I'd been so focused on my own life, my own friends, that I never saw Josh drowning right next to me. Never noticed him disappearing a little more each day. Police radios crackled somewhere close to our hallway. I heard someone shout that the suspect was heading toward the athletics offices. They got Antonio's message. They were tracking Josh. I texted him again. Where are you right now? Are you safe? Trying to keep him talking. Josh responded. Since when do you care about whether I'm safe? The bitterness in those words hit harder than any of the mean things I said at lunch. I heard footsteps running outside, heavy boots. Cops or SWAT. Then a single gunshot, followed by someone screaming, "Officer down!" My whole body went cold. Josh just shot a cop. This didn't end with him getting help or going to therapy. This ended with him dead or in prison for the rest of his life. And grabbed my arm again, her nails digging into my skin. Is he really going to kill us? She whispered. I didn't know how to answer. The Josh I knew wouldn't hurt anyone, but that Josh apparently stopped existing somewhere between freshman year and today, replaced by whoever was out in that hallway with a gun. I texted him, please just stop. Turn yourself in. This doesn't have to get worse. Even though we both knew it was already as bad as it possibly gets. The dots appeared and disappeared over and over for almost a full minute, the longest minute of my life. Finally, Josh responded, Are you still in Mr. Navro's room? In the second floor chemistry lab. My blood turned to ice. He was confirming exactly where I was. He was still thinking about coming back for me, still deciding if I was on his list. Mr. Navro, seeing the message over my shoulder, immediately started moving students toward the supply closet in the back corner. The only spot in the whole classroom that didn't have windows or a direct line from the door. I typed back, yes, but please don't come here. The cops are everywhere now. You can't win this. Josh's response came through almost immediately. I'm not trying to win. I'm just trying to make people feel what I felt. It hit me then. This was never about escape or some master plan. This was about making us hurt the way he'd been hurting. About forcing everyone to see him, even if it was the last thing any of us ever saw. I forwarded his last 3 messages to Antonio with a note. Send these to the police. Josh is talking about coming to the chemistry lab. Antonio confirmed he was already on a call with 911 dispatch. Units were being sent to our floor right now. Heavy boots pounded up the stairwell right outside. Someone shouted into a radio about SWAT moving to the second floor. They were setting up around where Josh last sent his location. He was close. Mr. Navro waved frantically at students still under desks, pointing toward the supply closet. He already had 15 people crammed in there, trying to fit more, when we heard glass breaking in the classroom next door. Josh was back on our floor. We could hear him breathing hard between the sounds of desks being shoved across the tile, like he was searching for someone specific, getting angrier with each empty space. My phone buzzed. A new text from Josh. It was a photo taken from inside our dark hallway, showing our classroom door with its spiderweb of cracks across the frosted glass. The caption read, I can see your teacher's desk from here. The periodic table poster is crooked. My stomach dropped. He was proving he was right outside, proving he knew exactly where we were. I typed back with shaking fingers. That poster's been crooked since September. You helped me hang it for Navro during lunch detention. Remember? I was trying to remind him we were friends once, that we used to help each other with stupid stuff, cover for each other. The 3 dots appeared at the bottom of my screen. They stayed there, for forever. Anne was watching over my shoulder. What's he saying? She whispered. I just shook my head. I didn't know yet. Finally, Josh's response came through. You got detention for spray painting the parking lot. I got detention for being in the wrong place. We were never the same. And he was completely right. I was the one who actually broke the rules, who thought it would be funny to paint our class year in huge numbers across 3 parking spaces. Josh just happened to be standing there when the principal came out. I took detention for a week, but Josh took it too, because he wouldn't rat me out. And I never thought about how unfair that was until right now. I texted back, you're right. I got away with stuff, and you took the blame. That wasn't fair, but this won't fix it. I watched the message change from sending to delivered. Before Josh could respond, something exploded somewhere close. A sound so loud my ears rang. And screamed. I heard someone yelling, Suspect spotted south stairwell, followed by boots running fast and radios crackling with overlapping voices. Josh texted, Got to go. Cops finally figured out the back stairs. The tone was almost joking, like this was just a game of hide and seek instead of him killing people. I typed as fast as I could. Please just give up. I'll visit you. I'll testify you were bullied. I'll do whatever helps. Maybe if he knew someone would stand up for him in court, he'd stop. The message showed delivered, but it never changed to read. 3 more gunshots rang out from the direction of the south stairwell, followed by someone screaming, "Shots fired! Officer needs medical." Then, a heavy sound, like something big hitting the floor. The radio chatter became crazy, multiple voices talking over each other about securing a suspect, calling for paramedics, setting up a perimeter. My phone stayed silent. No new messages from Josh. I didn't know if that meant they caught him or shot him, or if he was just done talking to me and was crying again next to me. Mr. Navarro was trying to keep everyone quiet in the supply closet. We waited in total darkness for another 10 minutes that felt like 10 hours. Then, someone pounded on our door and shouted, "Police! We have the suspect in custody. Prepare for evacuation." But Mr. Navarro made us wait. He crawled to the door, looked through the broken glass, checking for badges and uniforms, before he finally unlocked it. 2 SWAT officers in full gear, rifles at the ready, came in and swept the room, checking every corner and under every desk. One of them gave us the all-clear signal. They told us to line up single file, hands visible. We filed out into a hallway that looked like a war zone. Broken glass everywhere, crunching under our feet. Bullet holes in the walls. Dark stains on the floor that I forced myself not to look at too closely, because I didn't want to know if they were blood or something worse. The SWAT team guided us toward the main stairwell, keeping us away from whatever was happening at the south stairs where they caught Josh, and grabbed my hand and squeezed so tight my fingers went numb, but I didn't pull away. I needed something to hold on to as much as she did. As we turned the corner toward the stairs, I saw them. 4 officers surrounding someone on the ground in a black hoodie, hands cuffed behind their back. Josh's face was pressed against the tile. There was blood on his temple, but his eyes were open. They were scanning the hallway, like he was still looking for someone. For just a second, our eyes met across the distance, and I saw my best friend looking back at me. He looked scared and broken, and so impossibly young, lying there in handcuffs. Then an officer stepped in front of me, blocking my view, pushing our line forward. The walk down the stairs and through the main hallway felt like forever, even though it was probably only 3 minutes. We passed Coach Henderson's office. I could see paramedics working on someone inside. I forced myself not to look. I didn't want to know if Josh got the first name on his list. The front doors were propped open. Sunlight streamed in, so bright after being in the dark that several students stumbled, shielding their eyes. The parking lot had been completely transformed into a command center. Ambulances everywhere, lights flashing. Fire trucks. Police cars forming a perimeter. News vans with satellite dishes already set up along the street. They guided us to a specific area where crisis counselors in bright yellow vests waited with blankets and water, and spotted her mom in the crowd of parents behind the police tape and started crying again. But this time it was different. This time it was relief. I pulled out my phone. The screen lit up with 17 missed calls from my mom. The text started with, "Are you okay?" around the time the lockdown began, and got more frantic with each one. "Please answer. Where are you?" Finally, "Please answer. Please be alive." My hand shook as I hit call. She answered before the first ring finished, sobbing so hard she couldn't form words. I told her I was okay, I was outside, I was safe. My dad's voice cut in from the background, asking if it was really me. I repeated that I was fine. They said they were coming to get me, but the police checkpoints were backed up for miles. While I waited, I watched ambulances pull away from the main entrance, sirens blaring. I counted 4 of them before I forced myself to stop counting, because each one meant someone didn't make it out walking. The girl who was sitting by the window in our classroom stood near the police tape, talking to a news reporter. I heard her say, "We thought we were all going to die," before an officer stepped between them, pushing the camera crew back. The parking lot felt like chaos. Parents crying, students wrapped in blankets, reporters shouting questions. Antonio found me in the crowd, pulling me into a hug without saying anything. We just stood there, holding on to each other, because there weren't words for what we just survived. A detective in a dark suit approached us with a female officer. He introduced himself as Detective Jared Morgan and asked if I was injured. I shook my head. He asked if I was willing to answer some questions about my communications with the suspect. I nodded. What else was I going to say? He led me away from the crisis counselor area toward a big, white mobile command unit. Inside, they'd set up a temporary interview space. Detective Morgan gestured for me to sit. The female officer stood by the door. He asked me to walk through every text exchange with Josh. My hands shook as I unlocked my phone. He photographed each one, then asked me to email the full thread to an evidence account. He explained that my texts might have saved lives, keeping Josh engaged, helping police track his location. That made me feel worse, not better. I was just trying to save myself and everyone in that classroom. I wasn't thinking about being a hero. I was terrified and texting the person who was trying to kill us. Detective Morgan asked about my relationship with Josh. I told him everything. The lunch fight where I called him pathetic. The years we drifted apart as I made varsity soccer and got other friends, while he ate lunch alone. Coach Henderson cutting him from JV basketball. The social isolation I'd been too self-absorbed to notice until it was way too late. He took notes without judgment. When I started crying, talking about calling Josh pathetic, he just handed me a tissue box and waited. Finally, he asked if Josh ever talked about violence or showed me weapons. I said no. It was the truth, but it felt like a lie. I should have seen something. There should have been warning signs I missed. After the interview, he asked if I'd consent to having my phone imaged for evidence. I agreed. What choice did I have? A tech took my phone, returning it 20 minutes later with instructions not to delete anything. The detective gave me his card. You'll probably need to testify eventually, he said. He thanked me for my cooperation and let me go find my parents. My mom and dad were waiting right outside the command unit. My mom grabbed me so hard I could barely breathe. My dad kept touching my face, like he was checking I was real and solid. They asked if I was hurt. I said no, even though I didn't think I'd ever feel not hurt again. We walked to their car, past news cameras and other parents still waiting. I wondered how many students wouldn't be walking out. How many parents would drive home with empty car seats? The drive home was silent, except for my mom's occasional sobs. My dad kept looking at me in the rearview mirror like I might disappear. When we pulled into our driveway, our neighbors stood on their porch, watching us. I realized this was going to be my life now. Being the kid who was in the shooting. Being the kid whose best friend did it. My phone buzzed constantly with texts from people I hadn't talked to in months, all asking if I was okay. Inside the house, I headed straight for my room, but my parents stopped me. They wanted me where they could see me. We sat in the living room with the TV on mute, showing aerial footage of our school, surrounded by emergency vehicles. The news banner scrolled names of confirmed casualties. I saw Coach Henderson listed as deceased. Then Tyler Morrison, who sat 2 rows behind me in English. Josh got 2 people on his list before they stopped him. My phone rang. It was Antonio, asking if I'd seen the group chat. I opened it. Chaos. People arguing about whether we should have fought back. People sharing videos they took during the lockdown. People blaming Josh's parents, the school, bullying, gun laws. Everything except Josh himself. Someone posted, "Did anyone else know Josh was planning this?" 3 people tagged me, asking if I knew, since we were best friends. I stared at their messages and felt sick. Now everyone thought I might have known. Like I could have stopped this if I'd just paid more attention, or been a better friend, or done literally anything different. I opened the group chat again. My fingers shook as I typed. I didn't know anything. I'm as shocked as everyone else. But even as I hit send, the words felt wrong, like I was defending myself when 2 people were dead. Someone named Clark, who I barely knew from gym class, responded immediately, "But you were texting him during the shooting. What did he say?" 3 more people jumped in. "Did Josh seem different lately? Did you see warning signs?" Suddenly, everyone was treating me like I should have known, like I could have stopped this. My phone buzzed with notification after notification. I couldn't breathe. I closed the group chat without responding again and held down the power button until my phone went black. The silence in the living room felt heavy. My hands were still shaking. My mom watched me, wanting to ask what was wrong, but she didn't say anything. An hour later, she called us to dinner. None of us wanted to eat. We sat at the kitchen table, plates of pasta she'd made on autopilot, the same meal she always made when she didn't know what else to do. I pushed a meatball around my plate, watching the red sauce make patterns. My dad cut his spaghetti into smaller and smaller pieces, but never put any in his mouth. My mom took 1 bite, then held her fork in the air, forgotten. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car drove past. Finally, my dad put down his fork and looked at me. "Do you want to talk about it?" I shook my head. How could I explain any of this? How do I tell my parents that my best friend killed Coach Henderson, who used to give me rides home? That Tyler Morrison was dead, and I'd just seen him in English class yesterday complaining about homework. How do I make them understand that part of me keeps seeing Josh as the kid who helped me build a treehouse in 5th grade, who came to my birthday parties, who knew all my secrets, instead of the person who brought a gun to school and shot people? I couldn't find words for any of it. My dad nodded like he understood, even though nobody could understand this. That night, I lay in bed, staring at my ceiling. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Josh's face pressed against the hallway floor, hands cuffed. I heard the gunshots and panicked breathing, glass breaking. My brain replayed the moment our eyes met, seeing my best friend, scared, broken, so young. I rolled over. 11:30, it felt like hours. I tried counting backwards from 100, like my mom taught me, but I kept losing count around 70. At midnight, I heard my parents talking low, then their door closing. At 1:15, a siren. My body tensed. At 2 a.m., I gave up on sleeping. I went downstairs as quietly as I could. My dad was on the couch in the dark, TV on mute, showing news coverage. Aerial shots of our school, crime scene tape. Photos of Coach Henderson and Tyler that their families must have given to the news. My dad looked up. He didn't seem surprised. He patted the couch. I sat down. We stared at the TV. A reporter stood in front of the school. The caption said something about the suspect being held without bail. They showed a picture of Josh from the yearbook, from before everything went wrong. When he still smiled, my dad muted the TV completely. We sat in total silence. The sun started coming up around 6 a.m., turning the sky from black to gray to pale orange. My dad finally spoke. "Want breakfast?" I shook my head. We just sat there together as the morning light filled the room and the news coverage continued on the silent TV. The next morning, my mom found us still on the couch. She'd been crying again. Red eyes, tissue in hand. She read something on her phone. School's canceled for the rest of the week. Crisis counselors will be at the community center this afternoon. She looked at me. "I think you should go." I didn't want to face anyone. I started to argue, but she shook her head. "It's not up for discussion. You need to talk to someone." She was right, even if I didn't want to admit it. My dad offered to drive. I nodded. We got in the car around noon. The community center parking lot was packed. News vans, students walking in with their parents, all with that same shell-shocked look. Some crying, some just staring straight ahead like zombies. I recognized Emma from English Antonio's car. Inside, they'd turned the gym into a counseling area. Folding tables, different counselors. Someone gave my dad a clipboard. We sat in plastic chairs. The room smelled like cleaner. Too many low voices. A woman called my name. Cecilia Roberts. Kind eyes, gray hair in a ponytail. She didn't look at me with pity or suspicion, just patience. She led me to a private office away from the noise, gestured to a comfortable chair. She didn't push me to talk, just waited while I stared at my hands. Finally, she asked me what I was feeling. Guilty, I said. It was the only word that made sense. She asked why. I started listing everything. The fight at lunch. Not noticing Josh was in pain. Texting him during the shooting. Surviving when Coach Henderson and Tyler didn't. Being his friend all these years and never seeing this coming. The list kept growing. I felt guilty about basically everything. Cecilia listened without interrupting. I told her about growing up with Josh, how we were best friends, how we drifted apart when I made varsity soccer, dated Emma, had other friends, while he got more isolated. I told her about the lunch fight, about being under that desk, getting his text, realizing my best friend was the shooter, texting him to keep him talking, forwarding messages to Antonio, seeing Josh on the floor in handcuffs. When I finally stopped, Cecilia was quiet. Then she said something that surprised me. "You didn't pull the trigger. Josh made his own choices. Your words at lunch were unkind, but they didn't cause this." She explained that school shooters plan their actions over time. They look for justifications, but the decision to bring a gun and hurt people is entirely their own. "If it wasn't your insult at lunch," she said, "it would have been something else because Josh was already on that path." I wanted to believe her, but the guilt still sat in my chest, a heavy stone. We spent the next 30 minutes working on grounding techniques for when I started panicking. Focus on 5 things you can see, 4 you can touch, 3 you can hear, 2 you can smell, 1 you can taste. She gave me a journal. Write down thoughts I couldn't say out loud. Trauma responses were normal, she said. Nightmares, trouble concentrating, crying spells, anger. Healing wasn't linear. Some days would be harder. She scheduled me for twice-weekly sessions. Gave me her emergency number. She walked me back to the waiting room, shook my dad's hand, and said I was very brave. Outside, a reporter spotted me. Blonde hair, too much makeup, microphone with a news station logo. She called out, "Can you comment on your friendship with the shooter?" My dad immediately stepped between us. "Back off." But she kept shouting questions. "Did you have any warning signs? Do you feel responsible for not stopping him?" My dad put his arm around my shoulders, guiding me to the car. I kept my head down, tried not to cry. I didn't want to give them footage of me breaking down. We got in the car. He locked the doors. I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. My phone buzzed. A text from Antonio. Don't talk to reporters. They're trying to make us look bad for not stopping him. I texted back that I hadn't said anything. He sent a thumbs up emoji. That evening, my parents asked if I wanted to go to the vigil for Coach Henderson and Tyler. I said yes. It felt like something I should do. We drove to the park. It was packed. Students holding candles, photos of the victims, a table with flowers and teddy bears. Tyler's girlfriend, Jessica, was sobbing, held up by friends. Coach Henderson's wife sat in a wheelchair, looking completely broken. The principal gave a speech about loss. I couldn't focus. People crying everywhere. Candles creating little pools of light. I stood at the back, trying to be invisible, but I saw people pointing at me, whispering. A woman I didn't know walked over, anger in her eyes. Are you the one who was texting with him? I nodded. Did you try to stop him? Yes, I said. I had tried. Texted him, kept him talking, forwarded messages to the police. But she just shook her head and walked away. Like my answer wasn't good enough. Like I should have done more. I realized, standing there, that some people would always blame me. Always wonder if I could have prevented this. I would probably always wonder the same thing. I left before the speeches ended. My parents drove me home in silence. I went straight to my room and stayed there all weekend. On Monday morning, Detective Morgan called. Reminded me about the preliminary hearing on Wednesday. Wear something nice. Courthouse by 9 o'clock. My mom took me shopping for dress pants and a button-up shirt that felt wrong. Like I was playing dress up for something serious. Tuesday night I couldn't sleep. Facing Josh. Reading our texts. Explaining to strangers why I didn't stop my best friend. Wednesday morning arrived too fast. My dad drove me. The parking lot was packed with news vans and protesters. Justice for the victims. Mental health, not jail time. We pushed through reporters. My dad guided me toward the entrance. Inside, Detective Morgan met us. Witness waiting room. Uncomfortable chairs. Old magazines. A gurgling water cooler. We waited almost 2 hours. A bailiff came to get me. Long hallway. Courtroom doors. Wait until they call your name. Muffled voices. My hands shook so badly. Then the door opened. The bailiff nodded. I walked into a packed courtroom. Josh's parents in the front row. Coach Henderson's wife. Tyler's parents. Students. Reporters. Josh sat at the defense table. Orange jumpsuit. Made him look small young. Not the person who shot up our school. His lawyer sat next to him. Josh's eyes found mine. I saw fear in them. The bailiff directed me to the witness stand. Hand on the Bible. Swore to tell the truth. Sitting down, I felt everyone staring. Some sympathetic. Others angry. I couldn't tell which was worse. The prosecutor introduced herself. My name. How I knew Josh. Best friends since elementary school. We built forts, rode bikes, played video games. But high school we drifted. I made soccer. Josh got cut. I started dating. He ate lunch alone. She asked about our relationship on the day of the shooting. I told her about the lunch fight. He wanted to borrow my car. I said no. He got upset. I called him pathetic. Tyler and others laughed. Josh walked away. The prosecutor pulled out printed copies of our texts. Read them out loud. I read Josh's first text. You shouldn't have said those things at lunch. Then my response. Josh, please. This isn't you. His next message. Coach Henderson. Then that jerk Tyler from lunch. Then maybe I'll decide about you. The courtroom was silent. My voice cracked. She asked what I was thinking when I sent my responses. I was terrified. I was trying to keep him talking. I thought if I could keep him on his phone, then maybe he wouldn't hurt more people. I forwarded his messages to Antonio, hoping they could find him faster. Did your texts help? She asked. I don't know. Maybe they bought some time. Maybe they helped the police track his location. Or maybe I should have said something different. She told me I did the right thing. Thanked me. Then the defense attorney stood up. Older. Gray hair. Kind face. It didn't match what he was about to do. Had Josh ever been violent before? No. Threatened anyone? No. Had Josh been bullied? Yes. By whom? I listed names. Tyler Morrison. Guys on the basketball team. Had you ever bullied Josh? I wanted to say no, but I was under oath. Yes. At lunch, the day of the shooting. What did you say? I repeated the word pathetic. Josh's mom started crying. Did you know about Josh's mental health struggles? I knew he seemed sad lately, but I didn't know the details. Did you think Josh was mentally stable on the day of the shooting? The prosecutor objected. Sustained. The defense attorney smiled, made his point anyway. He thanked me. The judge told me I could step down. My legs shook so badly I almost tripped. My dad grabbed my arm. The rest of the hearing continued with other witnesses, other evidence. I couldn't focus. After about an hour, the judge called a recess. Everyone stood. I walked out into the hallway needing air. Olive Nolan stood near the water fountain. She saw me. Walked over. Thank you for being honest up there. She said I didn't try to make Josh look worse than he was. She explained the lawyer was building a case that Josh had a mental break. Part of me wanted to believe it. The Josh I grew up with wouldn't have done this if he was thinking clearly. But another part knew he had planned it. He made a list. Brought a gun. He knew what he was doing, even if he was in pain. Olive touched my arm gently. I don't blame you. Then she walked back into the courtroom. After the recess, the judge returned. Announced his ruling. Enough evidence for trial. Court date in 3 months. Josh denied bail. Juvenile detention until he turned 18. Then transferred to county jail. The bailiff told Josh to stand. Handcuffs. As they led him toward the side door, he looked back at me. His lips moved, forming, "I'm sorry," but no sound came out. I didn't know if he meant sorry for the shooting, or for dragging me into this, or for our friendship ending this way. Then he was gone. The next day, back at school, everything felt different. Some kids came up to me. You were brave for testifying. Others whispered, pointed, turned away. By lunch, snitch was spray painted across my locker in red. The principal called me to the office. They were reviewing security footage. Do you feel safe? I didn't know. She assigned me a different locker. Report any threats. Antonio and found me after school. People were choosing sides. Sympathy or punishment. Some thought I betrayed him. Others thought I did what I had to do. Antonio said to ignore it, and said she was proud. But I could feel friendships cracking. People I ate lunch with suddenly had other plans. Kids I studied with stopped texting. The shooting had divided our school into camps, and I was stuck in the middle. That week in therapy, Cecilia asked how I felt about testifying. Guilty. I helped prosecute my former best friend. I read his texts, admitted I bullied him. Now he was going to prison, partly because of my testimony. Cecilia leaned forward. You can acknowledge Josh's pain and mental health struggles while still holding him accountable for his choices. Both things can be true. He was suffering, and he killed people. He was bullied, and he made a choice to bring a gun to school. My words at lunch were cruel, and they didn't cause the shooting. She said I needed to separate my responsibility from Josh's. I was responsible for being a bad friend sometimes. Josh was responsible for murder. Over the next few weeks, Detective Morgan called several times to prepare me for the actual trial. The defense would argue Josh was bullied into a mental breakdown. My testimony about our friendship, the lunch fight, would be important. The prosecutor wanted me to emphasize Josh planned the attack. A list, service hallways, texts about his plans, all showed thinking ahead. I needed to be ready for hard questions. 2 days before the trial, Josh's lawyer called our house. My dad answered, got angry. The lawyer was asking if I would testify for the defense about Josh's mental state and bullying. My dad hung up, but I thought about it. Part of me wanted people to understand Josh wasn't a monster. He was a broken kid who made terrible, unforgivable choices. He was my best friend, who I watched slowly fall apart while I was too busy with my own life to notice. But I also knew he killed Coach Henderson and Tyler Morrison. He shot at police. He traumatized hundreds of students. In the end, I decided I could only testify to what I saw. Let the lawyers argue about what it meant. The trial started on a Monday, lasted 3 days. The courtroom was even more packed. I testified on the second day for almost 4 hours. The prosecutor asked detailed questions about Josh's behavior. Depressed? Yes. Weapons? No. Mentioned targets? Not directly, but I knew he was angry. The defense attorney asked about the bullying in detail. Every mean thing, I said. Every time I chose other friends over him. Every party without him. Did Josh feel invisible? Probably yes. Did he feel like he had no other way to be seen? The prosecutor objected. The judge allowed it. I don't know what Josh was thinking, I said. I only know what he did. Then they had me read the texts again. This time, the prosecutor asked me to explain what each message revealed about Josh's planning. He knew where I was. He knew the building. Specific targets. tracking police. All required thinking ahead. The defense attorney asked if fear and trauma could cause someone to think ahead while still being in a mental health crisis. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. The jury listened. Notes. Stares. I couldn't tell what they were thinking. When I finally stepped down, my shirt was soaked. My throat hurt. My dad drove me home. I slept for 12 hours. The next morning, my dad drove me back for the verdict. The jury had been out for 6 hours. That was a bad sign for Josh. We sat in the same courtroom. Josh, smaller than I remembered. The judge came in. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreman stood. Yes. The clerk read the charges. One by one. Guilty. Guilty of first-degree murder for Coach Henderson. Guilty of first-degree murder for Tyler Morrison. Guilty of attempted murder of a police officer. Guilty on all the other charges, too. Every single one. Josh didn't move. Just stared straight ahead. But behind him, Olive Nolan made a sound like all the air got punched out of her. Collapsed forward, sobbing. The bailiff had to help her. The judge thanked the jury, dismissed them, then set sentencing for 2 weeks later. Josh was facing life in prison with possibility of parole after 25 years. Since he'd be 18, he'd go to adult prison. My mom squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. I barely felt it. I was watching Josh get let out in handcuffs while his mom cried. 2 weeks later, sentencing. Even more packed. Coach Henderson's wife went first. Victim impact statement. 30 years of marriage. He coached hundreds of kids. She had to plan his funeral instead of their retirement. She cried the whole time, reading from her paper in a shaky voice that made everyone cry. Tyler's parents. His dad could barely speak. His mom did most of the talking. Tyler wanted to be a teacher. He'd never get that chance. They had to bury their son at 17. That pain would never go away. The prosecutor asked for the maximum sentence. Josh planned the attack, targeted specific people, showed no remorse until caught. Josh's lawyer argued for leniency. His age, mental health issues, bullied, isolated, reached a breaking point. Deserved a chance at rehabilitation. Then the judge looked at Josh. Do you want to speak? Josh stood up slowly, pulled out a piece of paper. It shook. He read from it, quiet voice. Said he was sorry to the victims' families. He thought about what he did every single day. He was in a dark place, made terrible choices, but that didn't excuse anything. He hoped someday he could do something meaningful with his life to honor the people he hurt. His voice cracked. He was crying so hard, he could barely get the words out. The judge let him finish. Took a few minutes to review his notes. Then he sentenced Josh to 40 years in prison with possibility of parole after 25 years. Josh didn't react, just nodded once, like he'd been expecting it. They let him out. This time he looked at me as he passed and mouthed something I couldn't understand. After the sentencing, I sat in my dad's car in the parking lot. A weird mix of relief and sadness. Justice had been served, everyone kept saying. But Coach Henderson and Tyler were still dead. Josh would spend most of his life in prison. But that didn't erase the trauma for me or Anne or anyone else. Detective Morgan found me before we left. Told me I did the right thing. My cooperation helped ensure accountability. I should be proud. I thanked him, but I didn't feel proud. Or like a hero. I just felt tired. Sad. Ready for everything to be over. Even though I knew it never really would be. In the weeks after the trial, I tried to focus on moving forward. My sessions with Cecilia continued. We worked on accepting that I did everything I could during the shooting and afterward. She kept saying I couldn't have prevented Josh's choices. I helped minimize the harm by keeping him engaged and sharing information with police. She made me repeat this thing about how carrying appropriate responsibility is different from carrying crushing guilt. The guilt wanted me to believe I caused the shooting. The responsibility meant acknowledging I said something mean, but understanding Josh made his own choice to bring a gun to school. Some days I believed her. Some days the guilt won. And I ended up growing closer. We studied together, talked about our fears and triggers. She was seeing her own therapist. Sometimes we'd compare notes about coping strategies. The weird thing was, we'd barely known each other before. Now, she was one of the only people who really understood. Sometimes we'd go sit in the chemistry lab after school, just to prove to ourselves we could be in that room without panicking. Mr. Navro would let us stay, never asked questions. He'd just work at his desk while we sat there, breathing through the anxiety until it was manageable. Antonio organized a group of survivors. 12 of us. We met weekly at the community center. No formal agenda. Just showed up, shared how we were doing, supported each other. Some days we talked about the shooting. Other days, we deliberately talked about anything else: movies, sports, college plans. We needed to remember we were more than just survivors. The group became a lifeline, the one place we could be completely honest about struggling without people telling us to move on. 6 weeks after the sentencing, the school held a memorial dedication. A garden in the courtyard, 2 benches with Coach Henderson's and Tyler's names. The principal gave a speech about resilience. Tyler's sister planted a tree, barely got through it. Coach Henderson's wife donated new equipment to athletics. It was sad, but also healing to honor them publicly. A few days later, I got a letter, forwarded through Detective Morgan, from Josh in prison. He understood if I never wanted to speak to him again, but he wanted me to know he was getting mental health treatment. He thought about our friendship often, wished he had talked to me about his pain instead of letting it build into rage. He didn't ask for forgiveness, just hoped someday I could remember the good times without them being poisoned by what he became. I read the letter 3 times, filed it away, not ready to respond, but not ready to throw it away either. As the school year finally ended, I realized I'd survived something I never thought I could. I still had hard days where loud noises made me panic, or I'd dream about being trapped under that desk. But I also had good days, laughing with friends, focusing on homework, thinking about the future without it feeling impossible. Cecilia said, "This is what healing looks like. Not forgetting what happened or being unchanged by it, but learning to carry the experience without letting it crush you." I didn't know if I believed that yet, but I was trying. And I filled out college applications together. Both of us picking schools within an hour of each other. Neither of us wanted to be alone after everything. Antonio got accepted to a state school 3 hours away, but we made him promise to visit and stay in the group chat no matter what. The survivors group met one last time before summer. We talked about starting chapters at our colleges, helping other students dealing with trauma, turning our